Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this. Welcome to this video where we're going to be unpacking how do we do trig reduction where there are special angles involved. Alright, first of all, what are these special angles? So the special angles that you guys do at this level is these 5 angles, which are, let me just draw a table. So here you'll have your angles column. This is your opposite column. This is your adjacent column. You need to know how to make this table. So me showing you this is me showing you how to compile this table. The hypotenuse column. All right, then there are 5 special angles that you guys do, which is 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, and lastly 90 degrees. And the way you make the table or compile the table is that you start counting. You start at 0, you go to 1, you go to 2, you go to 3, you go to 4, and from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But when you're counting those numbers, you are actually square rooting them. So a square root of 0 would give me a 0. A square root of 1 would give me a 1. A square root of 2 is a 2. A square root of 3 stays as a square root of 3. And lastly, a square root of 4 is just a positive 2. And then I'll start counting from this side going up. A square root of 0 is 0. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 2 is 2. Square root of 3 is the square root of 3. And lastly, the square root of 4 is 2. Then in this last column, we just have 2's. Our hypotenuse is always 2's. So that's how you come about making the table. So some maths teachers teach this with triangles instead, and that's fine, but I usually like teaching it with a table. And how does this work? If you're given sine 30 degrees, you can actually find what the value of that guy is by you knowing that sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And then you just go on to the 30 degrees column. I'm looking for the opposite and I'm looking for the hypotenuse. So sine of 30 is actually a half. All right, hope you guys can see that. Let's try another one. What if we have 10 of 60 degrees? So 10 is opposite over adjacent. So again, I need to go under the 60 degrees column. I'm looking for the opposite and I'm looking for the adjacent. So that will be a root 3 over 1, which is just a root 3. Right? Let's do another one. Let's do, what if we're given a cos 45? How do we evaluate this? Cos 45, remember cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. And so adjacent would be this root 2 divided by this 2. So it becomes a root 2 over 2. And that's your final answer. So this is how you use the table. And you have to, again, I repeat, you have to know how to make the table. So now we want to apply what we've learned now onto actually reducing special angles. Let's see how all of that comes into play. Let me just move this somewhere up here. Don't need this anymore. I'm just going to remove this heading as well. All right, let's try a question. Let's see how the question goes about. All right, so the question asks us to simplify this without using a calculator. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our reduction rules, and we're going to reduce those guys so that we can get them to look like these special angles. And once they look like these special angles, we can substitute the ratios of the special angles. So how do I reduce 330? I will reduce that with 360 minus 30. How do I reduce 135? I'm going to reduce that with 180 minus 45. So let's do that. And if you remember, going back to your cast diagram, 360 minus puts me in that quadrant. So cos is positive there. So it's a cos 30. 180 minus puts me into this quadrant there, and 10 is negative there, so you get negative of 45. And the fraction of cos, remember, is a over h. The fraction of 10 is o over a. So let me just substitute. So I go into the 30 column. I'm looking for this guy divided by this guy, root 3 over 2. That is being divided by the negative of 45 Toa, that guy divided by that guy, root 2 over root 2. So this just becomes a negative 1, and if you divide anything by a negative 1, you will get that same thing but a negative sign. And that is our final answer. So there we go. This is how you apply reduction with special angles. Let's do another question. All right, let's try this one. So this one is a little bit harder than the first one. But again, we're still going to reduce these guys. So the first one, I'm going to reduce that as 180 plus 60 would give me a 240. I'll reduce the second one as sine 180 minus, maybe not 180, let's do, is that sine 15? Let's do 90 plus 25. Yeah, maybe let's do that. 90 plus 25. And this cos one, I'm going to use 360. 360 minus 30. And this last one here, I'm thinking that needs to be cos of 180 plus also 25. All right. And then what we notice is the 10, 180 plus puts me in that quadrant, and 10 is positive, so 1060 stays. Sine 90 plus would put me into this quadrant, and sine is positive there, so I shouldn't forget to change it into a cos. Right? And then I have 360 minus, that is a cos 30. And then the last one, cos 180 plus would put me in this quadrant, and cos is negative there, so this is times by negative cos 25. Then at this point I can start cancelling. Before cancelling, I can at least cancel these two, but those other ones I do need to use my special angles for those. So let's substitute for the 10. The 10, 60 degrees is Toa, so it's this divided by that. Root 3 divided by 1. And this is being divided by the bottom guy, but I'm going to put him as a negative because of this negative there. So because of that, cos 30 is going to be this divided by that, which is a root 3 over 2. And then if you're dividing those, you could just tip in times. So you tip in times and you have a 2 over root 3. These cancel and your final answer will be a negative 2. And there we go. So in this next question, I want to unpack an exam type question. So let's look at how that would look. Look at this exam type question. This comes from the Eastern Cape paper that was written in 2023. It was the final paper, and this is obviously grade 11. So let's go about doing that. But before we do that, let me draw my cast diagram this side because I'm going to be using this guy. Right? And so let's start reducing. I'm going to reduce the sine 120 into sine of 180 minus 60, and 60 is a special angle, that's why I'm using 60 in particular, times that one. I'm going to reduce it with 360, so it's going to be 360 minus 60. Again, 60 is a special angle. Then this is a negative angle, and what we remember from our negative angle is that if you have cos and it has a negative angle, it just becomes cos of the positive angle. Then we still have our 10 to 25. I'm going to reduce that with 180 plus 45. So we've done our reductions that we need to do there. Let's apply them. So 180 minus puts the sign there. So sign is positive there, so this stays as a positive sign with the 60. 360 minus puts me into this quadrant, so that makes this 10 a negative 10 of 60 degrees. Then the cos will kind of keep it like that. It's already a special angle. Then the last one, 180 plus puts me into this quadrant, and 10 is positive in that quadrant. So this ends up being 10 of 45. Then at this point, I can substitute my special angles. Sine of 60 takes me into this row. And remember what is sine? Sine is O over H. 10 is O over A, opposite over adjacent. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. And lastly, 10 is O over A. So let me substitute for the sine. Opposite is going to be this divided by that, which is a root 3 divided by 2. That is multiplying a negative, again 60 tower, a root 3 divided by 1. So this is root 3 over 1. And all of this is divided by cos. We're still in the same row of 60, but we're looking for adjacent divided by hypotenuse, which is going to be a 1 over 2. And then the 1045 is just going to be the root 2 divided by root 2. So it's a root 2 over root 2. Then at this point, I just multiply across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. For the numerator, I end up getting negative 3 over 2. That is being divided by here. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. I end up getting square root of 2 divided by 2 root 2. Then once I have it like that, I could tip in times. So a negative 3 over 2, that is timesing a 2 root 2 over a root 2. These root 2's are going to cancel. These 2's are going to cancel. And what I'm left with is a negative 3. And there we go. So this is how you're going to go about solving this exam type question. It's for 7 marks. So make sure you're doing it correctly. And on that note, That's it from my side. I will see you on the next video. Bye.